Dealing with, it started with what was announced about the plot against the Michigan governor today, which was a militia group recruiting and training to kidnap her, probably from a vacation home, surveilling that home, practicing their tactics, even detonating what I'd call an IED. Very violent plans that have no place in this society. And this is a group very similar to those that we have seen people in this state that are supposed to be leaders standing with and riling up. We have to be so much better than that. Now, the FBI was involved in the arrest and raid of the individual who made threats against myself and the Kentucky State Police that was making grenades in his home, with kids in that home too. Otherwise, they communicate directly with my Kentucky State Police detail, which does a phenomenal job. At the end of the day, listen, I'm not concerned with my own safety. I have a lot of people around me that do an incredible job. What I am worried about is when we somehow encourage, embrace, or simply do not denounce groups that are engaging in domestic terrorism, then the opportunity for them to harm others grows each and every day. And it's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. Governor Whitmer and her family shouldn't have to go through what they're going through today. The threats that have been made on others and are made online seemingly just about every day against a bunch of us. The other day, I had to be taken out a different way because of one. I mean, this is, we got to be better than what we're seeing.
Since the biggest rallies that I could think of, the one including where you were hung in effigy, have you experienced, I don't know if pressure is the right word, from any of these groups, or have you experienced any more kind of contacts from these groups, more so than what we saw back in the summer?
Question is, after the rally with the 3 percenters, where they hung me in effigy, have we seen any other direct attempts at intimidation, maybe, or any pressure? Well, the individual that engaged in that about a week after stood outside my window in the back of the Capitol here, I guess trying to make a point, but pressure, no, I don't feel it. I got the right people around me. I'm going to do the right thing, and those that want to try to use fear to get me or others in this government to do the wrong thing, that is not going to work. I ran for this job to do the right thing, and I'm not going to let people bully me. If I did, they would try to bully everybody else in this state. If the governor won't stand up to you, who knows what you could get away with. Otherwise, just about everything else has been online. There are a lot of people who think that they're warriors with their keyboards, but there are serious ramifications to threats that you make against people online, and let's be better than that. Facebook wasn't made to try to attack people or threaten them with violence, and I mean, we should all be better than that. Stu? The question is on this attempt to step up enforcement, to continue where we are on various restrictions or capacities, as opposed to taking other steps. How soon do I want to see? The question was a drop in cases. I think our expectation ought to be a stabilization first. It's what we have seen. Do we have our stair-stepper chart in each of the escalations? With the exception of the very first escalation when we did Healthy at Home, we haven't necessarily seen a drop each time because our contacts have been greater. But what we have seen is a stabilization of where the cases are. Now, my hope is, with what last week's was a number of cases and what this week's are, we do need to see a decrease as opposed to simply the stabilization, but that's what we should see first. So if we are doing this right, if we can all wake up, if we can all do the right things and wear our masks, what we ought to see over a period of probably 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, because remember, it takes a couple weeks, is we ought to see a flattening and not have that escalation we see, especially in the last 4 weeks, which looks very, very concerning. And then at that point, if we're really doing it right, we ought to see it coming back down. Now, the other part we ought to look at is our positivity rate, which is important. But this number of cases, even with the low positivity rate, means that we're in a very serious situation. Now, it does mean that we're finding more cases so that we can react to them, but contact tracing 6,126 cases in a week when you're still working with the previous week, so 11,000 in a 2-week period is a volume that we've got to push down if we are going to be really effective about it. Tom?
Governor, going back to the Michigan incident, are you contemplating additional security measures here at the Capitol and the mansion? I know you can't describe what's being done, but are you contemplating adding more?
At this time, we don't feel like we need additional security measures here at the Capitol or what's around me. We've got great individuals. They've been wonderful to me and my family. And in times that we've gone through, I couldn't be more proud of them and their willingness to put their health on the line for my kids and for me. The Capitol, we feel good about the security. Obviously, we work with the larger Kentucky State Police when times arise. I think the going forward, we're going to have a stronger, and we're already growing it, focus on domestic terrorism, especially coming out of COVID. It's what all of Homeland Security and the national security groups talk about as being the single greatest threat moving forward. We see lots of examples of it, from hate groups to individuals to those trying to indoctrinate people online. We see some become more interested in it because sometimes the coverage seems to glorify these moments of hate and violence. But I feel good that we started moving in that direction and preparing for it before COVID hit, and that we're going to have the tools in place to ensure that we can hopefully step in at any of these moments, whether they would be a mass shooting, an act of domestic terrorism. We've got a couple examples of good outcomes where law enforcement has been there beforehand. Obviously, we did have a school shooting in Marshall County not too long ago that we want to make sure that we can prevent those from happening again. Catherine?
Governor Whitmer, addressing this, addressed the comments made by President Trump at the debate last week, telling the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. What kind of message do you think that sends to the public when the president is saying something like that?
The question is on Governor Whitmer talking about the president's comment on Proud Boys. I think that was a back and forth between the moderator and the president, so I don't want to address it directly, but the Proud Boys are one of these groups. There is no place for them. We should all denounce them. The more that they are encouraged, the more that these things can happen, like almost happened to Governor Whitmer, or other acts of violence against our citizens or law enforcement, which this group was planning. And that individual here in Kentucky making grenades that threatened the Kentucky State Police as well. I mean, we just got to be unequivocal in our denouncement. But here in Kentucky, we've seen lawmakers rally with them. We got to be better than that. If we can't say absolutely no to violence and groups that are prone to violence, militias that talk about overthrowing governments, there's no place for that in a democratic society where we're supposed to be able to disagree. And we have not just the possibility for civil discourse, but civil elections whereby that's when changes are made.